morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with Cambium Networks. Today's host is Bruce Collins, and he is their Senior Director of Product Line Management, and he'll be presenting today. If anyone has any questions, please submit them in the question box, and Bruce can answer them at the end of today's presentation. Bruce, thank you so much for taking the time to being with us today. I am finished for now. You can go ahead and take it on over.
All right, great. Thanks, Julie, and thanks everybody for joining today. I appreciate the time and try to answer any questions you might have at the end on EPMP, or if you have questions on Cambium in general, I'll be happy to entertain those as well. Please feel free to ask those questions, and we'll take them at the end, as Julie mentioned. So some of you may be new to Cambium. I suspect many of you have been around Cambium for a while, but there may be some new ones out there, and we thank you for joining if you are. Cambium Networks is you can see here on the slide, but we really focus in two areas: high density Wi-Fi for the enterprise space, as well as fixed wireless broadband solutions for the service provider space, as well as enterprise. We have some new technology that's been introduced over the last year, so I encourage you to head over to our webpage and see more information about our new Wi-Fi 6 platforms, as well as our cnWave 60 gigahertz millimeter wave solution. Today we're going to be talking about EPMP, which is in our fixed wireless broadband domain. We work closely with some technology partners in the industry. You see there, we're about 700 employees, and we're headquartered just outside of Chicago, which is where I'm located. And we've now shipped over 7 million. That number keeps going up, so I don't know if the slide is up to date, but that number keeps increasing dramatically as we ship radios all around the world. And we were part of, in case you are new and think you've heard of us before but aren't familiar with Cambium Networks, we did used to be part of Motorola Solutions up until 2011, which is now 10 years ago. And we became a publicly traded company back in 2019. So again, that's a quick overview and set your mind where Cambium is. I'm going to move through material fairly quickly today because I want to hit on some key points around EPMP, but I did want to show you some of the breadth of the portfolio. We are not just selling radios and providing radio solutions. We offer sort of that complete view, whether it's from the cnMaestro, which is our cloud and on-prem management solution that can manage all of the different products across Cambium, including EPMP, as well as our link planner tool, which is wildly popular. People use this all the time, and is a great solution for determining where can I make a link happen, and point-to-point link or point-to-multi-point link, what's the capacity of that link, and then what's the availability of that link. So Link Planner is always your friend, regardless of which of the Cambium solutions you're looking at. And then you can see some of the others as well. CNHeat is sort of a relatively new capability within Cambium. This is the ability to go out and use what's called LiDAR data to see a very precise view of where can I achieve a connection in 5 gigahertz or 3.5 gigahertz or the other spectrum as well. That is very useful in pre-qualifying customers. You basically take a look at a geographic area where you'd like to deploy service as a service provider, and some industrial customers are using this as well. So if I have a tower and I want to put some access points on that tower, this will give you a very precise, down to a few feet of location about where can I actually achieve the connection that I'm looking for. So great for pre-qualifying customers, great for determining that network plan, and then also as the installer goes out, they know exactly where to put that radio on the rooftop or the side of the building. So some of the software solutions that come along with this that really ease the deployment of Cambium solutions. And as I mentioned, we have sort of two sides of the house. One is the enterprise side, which is focusing on Wi-Fi and enterprise switching. You can see some of our latest products there. And then the fixed wireless side of the house, which is where I focus, and that is really looking at everything from our point-to-multipoint solutions that are deployed in very large numbers around the world to deliver internet access to homes and businesses. You can see here the 60 gigahertz solution, which is probably the newest in this portfolio, that is using millimeter wave technology. And we got our IoT products, our video surveillance products. So really, the opening slide is sort of that wireless that just works. We look at it as we have a lot of different tools in the toolbox. Depending on how you want to connect point A to point B wirelessly, we can do that in the same fashion or regardless of the frequency or the requirements of capacity and availability that you're looking for. So that's kind of the overview of Cambium, and I'm going to keep moving fairly quickly into EPMP. EPMP is a product that is used by both service providers and enterprise users, and it's really what we've seen a sharp increase in demand for EPMP over the last few years. And this chart is kind of interesting because it shows the typical WISPs demand increase that occurred last March when the pandemic started, as people started to move their school and work to the home. The capacity for wireless internet service providers, the demand on these networks increased significantly. And that is another reason why this drive towards the EPMP 3000, which we'll talk about in more detail today, has been a significant increase in the greenfield deployments of that product, as well as upgrading legacy products to the latest and greatest so they can increase and start offering 100 megabit services and above to residential users. So we talk about why EPMP, what makes it unique in the 5 gigahertz fixed wireless access networks. It really comes down to these 4 items. First one being the fact it is using 11AC Wave 2, which is a currently the latest generation of products that's out there in multi-point networks. I'll talk about the next generation, which is 11AX in a little bit. And suffice it to say, we have products in 11AX and we have plans for point to multi-point, but today the EPMP 3000 is the sort of the flagship that delivers what we call 4x4 multi-user MIMO. So you can deliver over a gigabit per second capacity to a sector. Supports those wider channels that 11AC brought, as well as the higher modulations, 256 QAM and 80 megahertz channels. EPMP has solved the equation for scalability and interference tolerance. So with our uplink beam steering, the dynamic filtering that's built into these access points, and really the flagship or key feature across all of our point to multi-point solutions is synchronization. So Cambium really focuses on multi-user MIMO for performance and synchronization for making sure that you reduce or in some cases eliminate self-interference, and you can really scale these up with a minimum number of channels and a minimum amount of spectrum. So think of those as far as the technology leads from Cambium, multi-user MIMO and synchronization. On the investment protection, we provide a long path of forwards and backwards compatibility with EPMP. So the EPMP, if you're an existing EPMP service provider or enterprise customer, you can upgrade, let's say you had deployed the EPMP 1000 or 2000 access point in the past, you can simply upgrade to the EPMP 3000 and it will interoperate with all those previous generation products. And then similarly, we see that moving forward as well into the next generation, which will be based on the 11AX technology. And then TCO, total cost of ownership, that is important as ever. We offer a 3-year hardware warranty, and you can get support directly from your channel, which somebody like Microcom is a great example. We appreciate their support and having us on today, as well as you can come straight to Cambium and get support. So with Cambium, you have this sort of whole ecosystem of support, whether it's your channel provider or the manufacturer themselves. And that 3-year hardware warranty really is ease of mind as you deploy these networks. I won't go through this in a lot of detail, but there are some benefits of the platform beyond that high level. The GPS synchronization is important for the ability to reuse frequency. So we like to say we use a 2-channel reuse scheme across ePMP networks. So you can use channels A and B, and you can just replicate those across the entire network. You can scale those networks 50, 60, 80. We have many customers that are going above 100 subscriber modules per sector. Now that all depends on how much service plans you're offering. Nowadays, we have customers offering 100 megabit per second, 250 megabit per second service plans. So the tendency or the trend is typically now to reduce the size of those sectors, reduce the range of those sectors so that I can deliver lots and lots of capacity. And the economic equation with ePMP really helps with that as you start to, and I'll show you some examples of some different antenna technologies that help with that as well. In the area of scalability, we have what we call air fairness. So this kind of makes sure that you don't have one subscriber module that is way behind a tree or behind a building, is really kind of dragging down the sector performance. We use a concept called air fairness to make sure that that is all balanced and that you're not having a single SM take out the performance of the network. So we see lots of information about ease of use, and I mentioned CN Maestro, CN Heat, all those tools that help you deploy this, and of course Link Planner as well. The way we deploy our 11AC versus some of the other Gen 1s products that are out there, and so we really look at, we deploy ePMP 3000 is based on 802.11ac Wave 2. It's important to note because it brings a couple things. It brings multi-user MIMO, which gets us that capacity up over a gigabit per second per sector. And it also gives, and it gets there by using 256 QAM, 80 megahertz channels, and multi-user MIMO. When we talk about comparing this technology to some of the other technologies in the industry, and I used a couple of Ubiquity products here as a comparison, more to compare the technology than the products themselves, but it's worth pointing out that there are differences when you talk about 5 gigahertz fixed wireless solutions. And when you look at, starting on the left, a typical 11AC network, I want to deliver 500 megabits per second to a network, and I'm going to use 802.11ac Wave 1 technology, so previous generation technology. If I'm going to deliver that kind of capacity at 500 meg, I need to achieve 64 QAM, and I need this sort of signal to noise ratio of 27 dBi. So it means that I need a certain amount of signal compared to what the noise floor is. And if I want to do a gigabit per second, there's just not possible. So if you're talking about a Gen 1, 802.11ac Wave 1 technology, it's just not going to get to the gigabit per second. One way to approach that is to increase that QAM modulation, or basically try to pack more bits per second into a particular piece of spectrum. And you can get there to the gigabit per second, but you need to, you'll see here, you need to get all the way up to 4096 QAM modulations to achieve that that capacity, and that drives up that SNR, meaning I need that much more signal to achieve that that speed and performance. With multi-user MIMO, with multi-user MIMO, which is what ePMP 3000 uses, you can achieve that gigabit per second. I only need to get 64 QAM, which is pretty achievable in today's networks and environments. So I don't need to increase that capacity or that noise floor or the signal to noise ratio when I go to a multi-user MIMO. And in fact, if I'm just looking at 500 megabits per second, I can even drop all the way down to 16 QAM, and which gives me even more noise and interference immunity. And so what does that mean in the big picture? Is that MU-MIMO, multi-user MIMO, gives you longer distances, so bigger cells, more throughput. So on a given size cell, I can get more capacity. And in cases where it makes it's important, I can use smaller antennas, which is a lower cost antenna, but it also can mean I can put more antennas on a tower with the wind loading and everything else. So basically the whole network operates more efficiently. And this is why you'll see Cambium continue to invest in multi-user MIMO, whether it's in our PMP 450M platform or with the EPMP 3000 platform. So let's talk about access points and get into the product itself a little bit. I want to highlight just how the portfolio stacks up, and because there are a lot of different options with EPMP 3000. The access point portfolio consists of, really, I would talk about two items here. The 3000, which is what I've been talking about. This is the multi-user MIMO 11AC Wave 2. You can do up to 120 subscribers. There is a little brother to the 3000, which is what we call the EPMP 3000L. That's a 2x2 MIMO. It's about half the price, so it is a more economical. If you're looking at smaller areas, less densely populated, it gives you that option to go after some lightly populated or smaller areas. It supports up to 64 subscriber modules, and it still will give you up to about 600 megabits per second. So it doesn't have the multi-user MIMO, so the capacity is about 600 meg. Previous generation product, EPMP 2000. This product is still available, although we see that winding down, and most customers have made the migration now to the 3000L or the 3000. We do still sell the 2000 through the end of this year, and we see those customers quite happily deploying those even today, and that product's been out for several years now. And then the Omni MicroPop. This is a very specialized application, but if you're looking to light up just a very small cluster of homes, you don't want to put up a full 3000L with sector antennas or dual horns or omnis. You can put up this small Omni MicroPop, and it's got a fairly short range, maybe a few hundred yards, but it lets you light up, say, a small cluster of homes and provide service to those areas. For an enterprise side, it's a great solution to light up a few Wi-Fi access points, or even imagine some video surveillance cameras in an area where I don't need a lot of range, but still looking for that performance. Speaking of the different ranges, there are some different options when you look at the three different access points I mentioned. On the antenna side, there are some different options. On 3000L, you'll see there's a sector antenna from Cambium. There's an Omni antennas. There's a whole series of Omni antennas available on the market for a 2x2 Omni. So we don't actually sell one of these from Cambium, but many of our partners have these on their line card, and you can get access to those. And then we also work closely with the company called RF Elements with their twist port adapters and the ability to connect quite a range of horn antennas to the EPMP 3000L. And then when we talk about the 3000, there are 4 options I've listed here, and that list continues to grow. But we offer the multi-user MIMO sector. This is a 90-degree sector. That's the most commonly used, and gives you the best sort of performance in a 4-sector deployment if you're looking for lots of capacity. If you maybe don't need that much density, you have a couple of other options. You have an Omni antenna from a company called KP Performance, and then you also have an Omni from a company called IT Elite. So there's a couple of different options on the Omni side. And then Cambium also offers what we call a dual horn antenna. So I'm going to spend a couple minutes on that as well. Let me just go straight to that. The multi-user MIMO dual horn antenna is really a nice technology that gives you the benefits of a horn antenna pattern, but also gives you the value or the sort of the performance of multi-user MIMO. So in this case, it's about a 60-degree beam width. So rather than the 90 degrees, you're narrowing it up to about 60. But it has the benefit of very small, what we call side lobes on the antenna pattern. So you can bring in the capacity or you bring in the width of that sector. You bring in the interference mitigation from the sides, and you reduce that. So you're really focusing it on a narrow beam. So this is a great solution for a micropop, where I just have a group of homes or a group of buildings I want to connect in sort of that 60-degree area. and I can really focus that beam into that area and sort of not listen to things coming at you from the sides. So here's a case study of a customer here in the U.S. That's using the dual horn antennas, and we continue to see this. This was introduced middle of last year, and we continue to see quarter after quarter the take rate and attach rate of this antenna just continues to increase. So quite a popular product. On the subscriber side, so that was the access points. On the subscriber side, we have a variety of different options. You got the Force 325, 16, I won't read them all off, but you can see effectively these all have some things in common, which I'll hit on the next slide, I believe. But effectively, they're all 11AC Wave 2 subscriber modules. They are all offering up to 600 megabits per second of capacity, and they're all operate the same way. So the look and feel and everything is the same. So what's really different is the range that you'll get based on the form factor and antenna gain. So you can see everything from a 25 dBi gain, which is the highest gain, Force 325. And I will say that this Force 325 along with the Force 316 are the two highest runners. So people appreciate the gain of the 25. They like the small form factor of the 16. There are a couple of other options as well. We have the 13. I'll start over here in the lower right. That's a very, very small form factor, just a little bit, maybe the size of both of your hands together, makes the Force 313 a really nice small form factor. Of course, you're trading off some of that gain with a 13 dBi antenna versus the 16. We also offer the 19 and 19R. These are panel antennas that give you the additional gain of the 19 dBi panel. And also some people like the form factor of this versus a dish. It just looks less like a radio. So for some businesses and historical districts and those kind of areas where they don't want to have these dishes hanging on the side of their house, they will accept a Force 319. So we see a lot of applications for that. And then the 19R gives you the ruggedization of IP67 and some additional features on that one. And then of course, some customers are going straight to the connectorized SM with the Force 300 CSM. So there's a little bit more of a tabular view and gives you a sense of how they all stack up against each other, but I won't go into that in more detail. And I'm also going to flip through these slides fairly quickly. And I can make this slide deck available to Julie, and if you're interested, we can make this deck available to you as well. But I'll click through. It kind of gives you some of the details on each of those products. I wanted to spend a few minutes on two additional things. One is a bridge-in-a-box UHD. This is our bridge-in-a-box is a solution, prepackaged solution that basically a customer can buy a prepared Ethernet bridge in a box. It's everything you need is in that box to connect between 100 feet and 5 miles away. And depending on the capacity you want, there are a couple of different options here. People are generally using bridge-in-a-box to extend internet connectivity. They're connecting remote Wi-Fi hotspots or CCTV or video surveillance cameras. But think of it as a network extension. We also have a number of wireless service providers that are using this. The example, I just spoke with someone who they offer internet service to say a farm, but that owner of that farm wants to have a subsequent connection to some of the outbuildings on that in that facility. So the wireless service provider, instead of having to send a truck out to install a new connection, they're able to just send one of these bridge-in-a-box solutions and have the person at the on site do the installation themselves. So it gives you that option for a service provider. But then we also see a lot of enterprise customers just buying these to solve particular problems, and you can kind of see that list of how people are using the products there on the right. So whether you're connecting any kind of building to building, campuses, remote parking lots, lots of different applications for bridge-in-a-box. We offer 3 different variants of bridge-in-a-box. I will say that the traditional or classic bridge-in-a-box is, we're seeing that sales decline on that in favor of the UHD and UHD Pro. and we will be, this is based on an older technology, the 11N technology, and we do see that, at least here in the US, going end of sale around the end of this year as people migrate over to the 11AC products with UHD and UHD Pro. So if you're actively deploying current Bridge-in-a-Box and you have customers that are deploying it, you should really check out UHD and UHD Pro as sort of the next generation. You can see the capacity jumps up significantly, 600 megabits per second versus 200. And we offer a couple different ranges based on the antenna form factor. And I guess the other thing to point out is UHD Pro has the IP67 housing. So it's real nice if you're going after any kind of industrial application or work sites or boat docks or anywhere that you have a little bit of concern about environmental aspects as far as wind and dust and rain. This UHD Pro becomes a nice solution. And there's a couple few key specs on each of those. Again, I won't go into those in a lot of detail other than the deployment of these is the same as traditional Bridge-in-a-Box. Everything you need comes right in that box to build a point A to point B connection. When we talk about who is a good customer for Bridge-in-a-Box, it's really we're looking at somebody who they don't have to have any networking or RF knowledge or anything to do with wireless, but they are probably someone who's sort of familiar with doing a DIY type project or connecting up their own, maybe they've set up their own TV or they've set up their own wireless router inside their house that they purchased at the Best Buy. They could set up a Bridge-in-a-Box. That's kind of the target, as along with any of these other type of enterprise customers that are just looking for something really easy and simple to connect. People find these, they're looking online for wireless extenders, wireless Ethernet bridges, and in a lot of different places. And we know a lot of those customers come to Microcom for those solutions, so we appreciate that. Let me kind of wrap up today's session and talk about the latest generation of product, which is what we call the Force 425. I've got a quote on here from a customer here in the US. Josh has been using the product. We introduced this product back in the end of last year. Supply has been a little bit constrained because this is latest and greatest technology, and you may have heard in the industry that there's challenges with getting semiconductors out of the factory with the high demand these days. But we do see the availability of this product increasing as we get into the second half of this year. And the customers that have been deploying Force 425 have been very happy with it, and you can kind of read that quote there. As far as what is the Force 425, there's two variants you can see in the pictures here. There's a Force 425 with a dish, and there's a Force 400C, which is connectorized. It delivers up to a gigabit per second. It does use the latest technology based on 802.11ax, and it does provide, in the US, this is covering 4.9 up to 5.85. So this additional spectrum is really for outside of the US, so you can disregard that, but it does go up to about 5.85 in the US. And then I'll show you a picture. We also offer a range extender, so you can really either increase the length or the range of a connection, or you can increase the modulation to get those new 1024 QAM modulations that are available with 11ax. It's IP67, and it also includes an SFP port. So for customers that are currently deploying fiber, this becomes a nice solution to extend that GPON network or extend the fiber network into places where it's too expensive or timely to deploy fiber. So here's another quote from a customer, but again, these lots of customers finding a lot of use cases for this. Force 425 mechanics were designed from the ground up for the installer. So we interviewed a lot of installers of our current Force 300 series, and we've identified a number of improvements, and those have been dialed into the Force 425. So really happy with how this one turned out on the mechanical side. I've got some slides in here about field performance. In the interest of time, I won't go through these in a lot of detail, but I will point out, and you'll see pictures from all around the world of people deploying Force 425 and achieving here. You can see 880 megabits per second, over 800 megabits per second. And when you look at this product spec sheets, data sheets, and you compare it to things like the Ubiquiti Air Fiber, you'll find that the performance and price point really compares favorably to that product. And we see this as a really a great solution for point-to-point delivering, you know, as you can see, hundreds and almost up to a gigabit per second of capacity. Here's another example. This one, I believe this is actually out of, this might actually be out of the Ukraine. I won't go into these in a lot of detail, but I will let you see the pictures. And that varies from 20 megahertz channels. You can see 190 meg in a 20 meg channel. The thing that I would point out on this one is that when we did introduce 1024 QAM modulation with the 11AX standard, there was some question about how useful 1024 QAM would be in the real world scenarios. And what we're seeing with Force 425 is that it is quite achievable in many cases. And with all radios, even if in this case they're seeing, it's a little hard to read, but we're seeing about 26% of the packets are going out at 1024 QAM, and the rest of them are going out at 256 QAM. Well, every packet that goes out at 1024 QAM is less airtime that's consumed, and you can start to really, you know, build up that the capacity of that network. Another one in Canada, Croatia. I'm going to keep moving. As you can see, these are deployed all over the world at this point, and they continue to ramp up. And here's one closer to home here in the U.S. You can see how people are deploying it, so different installation practices. So kind of summarizing where that fits in, Force 425 sits amongst our high capacity sub-6 point-to-point solutions. So I talked about the Force 325. Certainly a lot of customers are deploying that for point-to-point link. Force 319R gives you that option as well in a panel design, a panel antenna design. The Force 425 I talked about here gets you that gigabit per second, and so you get more capacity, and it's available in both the dish or the connectorized panel. And then I also want to mention, I didn't talk about it much on the session today, but the PTP 550 is a solution kind of in the same class of products here, but it can go up to 1.4 gigabits per second by aggregating two channels. So you can do two by 20, 40, or 80 megahertz channels, and it will do automatic channel selection and dynamic channel selection in a hitless fashion. So as and when the noise floor changes, it will jump to a different channel, and you can aggregate multiple channels. So this has also been a very popular product, and we see that increasing in the number of uses. But that's kind of gives you a flavor for the different options in point-to-point, in addition to the bridge-in-a-box UHT that we talked about. So I want to kind of close with one more slide, which is really where we see EPMP evolving. We talked about how this is investment protected. We started with the 1000, we introduced the 2000 later on, which added the beam forming and the ability to do backwards compatibility, the filtering. Then we introduced the 3000, which we talked about quite a bit today, which is the multi-user MIMO, the higher modulation and 11AC. And then we talked about the first product under the 11AX technology, and that's the Force 425. That's now been available for about a year, actually more about 8 months. And what you'll see coming from Cambium in the future is multi-point solutions based on the 802.11ax technology. Look for those coming in 2022. You'll see more information coming over the coming months. But suffice it to say that Cambium is working diligently on the next generation, as we always are. And the plan is that any of those Force 300 subscriber modules that you are deploying today will be compatible with that 11AX access point going in the future, which will add things like 8x8 multi-user MIMO, OFDMA, in some cases, some wider channels, and some higher capacities. So we're going to go from a gigabit per second to multiple gigabits per second as we go to that next generation. So exciting things to come. The other thing I'll point out is that if you're following the industry in North America, the 6 gigahertz spectrum is going to be opening up when the FCC approves the rules. We expect that to open up sometime in 2022 as well, and we anticipate having this next generation EPMP product available as soon as that spectrum opens up. So keep your eye on that as well. Cambium will be a leader in 6 gigahertz as that product emerges, and this as the spectrum becomes available, and the product is will be available right then at that same time. So I know I went fast, probably talked too fast, but there was a lot to cover. And Julie, I'm going to hand it back over to you to see if there was any questions.
Thank you very much, Bruce, for that wonderful presentation. We enjoyed it. And yes, I do have a few questions for you. Let's get started with them. First one right here. Regarding CN Maestro, will this be supporting the older devices of Cambium at this point?
So when you, so I think it's a good question. I thank you for that. It's CN Maestro supports older is a good question. So CN Maestro supports all of the ePMP products that you saw on the presentation today. It supports all PMP. I'm trying. I can't think of one that we don't support today, with one major exception, and that is our PTP 8XX or 820 and 850 licensed microwave solutions. We will have a solution for that in first quarter of next year, and at that point, I think it's safe to say that we would have a CN Maestro solution for all the products. If there's one that I'm forgetting, or you have a more specific question, if you ask the person who asked it to follow up. But I believe that we'll check the box on all of the products in the portfolio.
Excellent. Thank you, Bruce. Next question here for you. Regarding Enterprise XV4, will this support Wi-Fi 6 in the near future, or will there be a different model?
So I'm probably going to be stuck on that one. You know, I would suggest, if you want to drop me an email on that, I can get you connected to the right person on the enterprise side. Clearly, we have indoor Wi-Fi 6 solutions, and we will have outdoor Wi-Fi 6 solutions shortly. So, you know, connecting the particular product model number, I'd have to, you know, connect you to the right person within Cambium. But I believe the answer is, well, I know the answer is yes. Whether that particular product will be migratable, I don't know. So I can follow up on that one.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Bruce. Next question here. Regarding the EX2052, will this be configured using CN Maestro, or is there a different cloud solution?
So another good question. So that's referring to the CN Matrix Enterprise Switch. So those are all managed by CN Maestro. So yes, the same CN Maestro interface that you manage what we're talking about here today with ePMP, you manage the CN Matrix switches as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Next question here. Regarding ePMP, can any antenna work with them, or does it have to be a Cambium brand as well?
So no. So the short answer is no. You can use third-party antennas, and we have a great ecosystem of antenna suppliers that we work with. In some cases, Cambium provides the antenna, and we design some of those. And the ones that we design are typically it's because we can provide either tighter integration from a mechanical package, or for example, on a sector antenna, or on a multi-user MIMO sector, we can provide that that connectivity and performance tuning is just better to be done by the manufacturer. But having said that, we offer all those connectorized antennas. So you saw the connectorized subscriber module. You saw the ePMP 3000L, which is a connectorized access point. So we certainly work with people like KP Performance, RF Elements, IT Elite. There's there's just lots of antenna suppliers, and I know customers are using all different antennas with these radios.
Thank you, Bruce. Next question here for you. When you mentioned support direct from the channel and supplier, does that mean that Microcom can reach out on behalf of a customer and Cambium would be able to help that customer right away?
Sure. Yeah. So, it's typically, you could open up a ticket with our support desk, whether through the phone or through email. The only thing I would say is that, you run the risk of being the middle person in that. But if you have all the information, log files and things that the support team would need, absolutely, that's not an issue.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So regarding the support team or opening up a support ticket, what is the best way for anyone to reach out for support at Cambium?
So I would direct you, first thing I would do is direct you to the cambiumnetworks.com website and click support. There's a support section on there, and that will give you the particular email addresses and phone numbers that you can reach out for support. And then there's also different offerings. So there's a whole broad variety of ways that we can offer support, from free of charge support for in-warranty products to extended warranties to what we call higher response times or higher SLAs that can be applied. So there's a kind of a whole menu of options, but I would start with the cambiumnetworks.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. Bruce, can you give us an overview on where Cambium products are manufactured?
So that's a pretty well, I'll give you the overview, which is what you asked. Yeah. We have products manufactured all different places, but I would say, primarily our products today are manufactured in either Mexico, the US, or China.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that's exactly what we were just sort of looking for. Bruce, thank you so much for answering all of those questions for us today. And thanks for everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And please remember, this webinar presentation has been recorded and will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so you can view it again. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Bruce, for your time, your energy, and your valuable information. We greatly appreciate it. I wish everybody a fantastic day.